I think I'll proceed in exactly the same way as we did in the last plenary, which is to collect 5 or 6 interventions. They need not be only questions. They could also be comments on what's discussed. And you have license also to open up new subjects that haven't been addressed that we can work with. So please keep your name cards up for a moment. Good. I will start right at the back where I can't read the name, but you, sir, are holding up your name card. I can see you, madam, as well in the front. I'll go with those 2 first. If you give me your name first. Yes, you, sir, and then, madam, yeah.
Thank you, John. If I may direct this question to General T and the panel. With the growing interest and presence of major powers in this region, in particular the US, it may be viewed as a deterrence to potential conflict. But does it not dilute the role and effectiveness of ASEAN and its role on regional stability? And does it pose a challenge on the relationships of countries within ASEAN? What is your view? Thank you.
Thank you. And right in front, if you could give your name, and then...
Thank you, Chair. Salma Malik from Pakistan. My question is directed more to Minister of Defense Stephen Smith, and I would appreciate if any other co-panelists may also address it. At the last night's address by the Indonesian president, he hinted towards the growth of Indonesian military and the enhancement of Indonesian military. And here you also talked about the force posture initiative. So how is it going to impact the deterrent stability for the region, and especially given that it could also lead to an arms racing within the region? Thank you.
And Manish Tiwari from India.
Thank you very much, John. My question is to the Defense Minister of Myanmar. General, last week there was a bilateral visit from India to Myanmar. The Prime Minister of India was in Myanmar. I was just wanting to find out that from your perspective, what are the areas insofar as defense and security is concerned that India and Myanmar could cooperate further? The second part of my question is that I heard you say, and it was very noteworthy, that nuclear deterrence is not an option in the region. There have been certain concerns in the past with regard to the nature of Myanmar's nuclear program. If you think it is appropriate, could you clarify as to what exactly is the nature of Myanmar's nuclear program, if at all it has one? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mark Fitzpatrick.
Thank you. Following on from Mr. Tiwari's question to General Hua Min, Myanmar leaders have made several statements over the past several months clarifying that Myanmar has no interest in pursuing any aspect of nuclear weapons, and has also indicated that the military relationship with North Korea will be changed, perhaps terminated. With regard to the nuclear program, it would be useful to have an independent verification of Myanmar's peaceful intentions. And of course, there is an organization, the International Atomic Energy Agency, provides a basis for this kind of verification. I wonder if Myanmar will be ready to accept a stronger relationship with the IAEA, to accept the IAEA's various means of enforcing or verifying peaceful nuclear intentions.
And from Japan, Maeda-san, National Security Advisor to the Prime Minister.
Thank you, John. Indeed, I can get the better understanding of the role of ASEAN and the ADMM and the ADM Plus as a platform of the regional stability and security. And in particular, that the comments made by Cambodian Deputy Prime Minister, I'm very interested in what you say about the national security connectivities proposal from Cambodia. And I'd like to know the more detail about outline of your proposal of national security connectivity.
Thank you. Mr. Lloyd Parry of the Times.
Thank you. My question is for General La Min of Myanmar. Aung San Suu Kyi has said repeatedly that although she's persuaded by the personal sincerity and commitment to democratic reform of President Thein Sein, she does not know whether he has the full support of the Myanmar military. Can you assure us that the Tatmadaw is 100% committed to democratic reform in Myanmar? And do you accept that in future, the military will have to give up its guaranteed 25% of seats in Parliament?
Tim Huxley.
Thank you, John. My question is for Australian Defence Minister Stephen Smith. Could the Minister please say how the recently announced adjustments to Australia's defence spending might affect the capability development plans that were announced in the 2009 Australian Defence White Paper? Thank you very much.
Mr. Watanabe.
Thank you very much. Sorry. Thank you very much. I'm from a Japanese think tank, Tokyo Foundation, and I'm very interested in the Myanmar's defense minister's comment on the mutual distraction in the economic area. And clearly, the world major economic power is watching the business opportunity in your country in the future. And I'm very glad to hear your prospect for the economic area and the business areas future strategy, I think, in the context of what you mentioned, the mutual assured distraction in economy.
I also had, I think, Ms. Chang on the list. Is that correct? Chang? Yes? If not, there is a gentleman at the back who, so yes, you go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, John.
Could you
have very good vibes. And my questions goes to the general's T-plans. And you know, Burma is experiencing dramatic and significant transformations. And such a kind of transformations are certain impact on China and Myanmar's relationship. As a Chinese, I'm quite concerned about this kind of change. And I just wonder, can you elaborate a little bit more on the possible impact on China and Burma's military relationship? Thank you.
And then I had, I think, Malik on the line. Mr. Malik? If not, I can recognize one other speaker before I come back. Is there anyone who sought the floor I hadn't yet seen? Or one more go for Mr. Furukawa then. Go ahead, and then I'll come back to the panel.
Thank you, Mitch. Thank you very much. My question is for the distinguished Minister for Defense of Myanmar. Following up on the questions posed by Mr. Fitzpatrick, there is a speculation that Myanmar's military cooperation with North Korea may have possibly violated UN Security Council resolutions imposing sanctions on North Korea. I wonder whether you could elaborate some more details about the nature of this bilateral military cooperation, and also whether you may intend to change the course of military cooperation with North Korea in the coming years, and if so, how? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, there's a large collection of questions there. I think I will ask first the Defense Minister of Myanmar, then the Defense Minister of Australia, and then the Deputy Prime Minister of Cambodia to respond in that order. I will give the Minister of Defense some extra time, I think 8 or 9 minutes, because you've been asked about the relationship in security terms between India and Myanmar. I think people would also be interested in the prospective security relationship between Myanmar and the United States. You've been asked several times about your peaceful nuclear program, your relations with North Korea, and the way in which you might engage more fully with the IAEA. And also there's been an important question about the vigor of support from the military for the democratic reform process, and even specifically whether the guaranteed 25% seat entitlement might be something you might give up in the interest of reform. So do take your time and answer all those questions if you may, please. Thank you.
In this case, I would like to reply in Myanmar language. Firstly, the question about India-Myanmar defense cooperation, security cooperation. India and Myanmar are historically very close relationship. Our country, as a neighbor, in terms of population, in terms of size, such a large country like India and People's Republic of China has impact on our political situation. As such, for our foreign relationship, we have a very vibrant foreign policy, active foreign policy, and we'll have to have all good relation with our neighbors. Between India and Myanmar, the situation of insurgency on the border, which has happened since our independence, and these still persist. Regarding the insurgency in our neighbors, we also have sympathy for the countries. In our new government, with our political objective, we would like to achieve peace and get rid of all the insurgencies within our country. As such, as our original objective, cooperation between the two neighboring countries, military operation, we are not going to do that, but we will have cooperation with our friends and neighbors to cooperate in other means and enhance our friendship with India and Myanmar. Similarly, with all our neighbors, with China, India, Thailand, Bangladesh, all our neighbors, we have a very good historical relationship, and we wish to improve upon that. In terms of the nuclear issue, they are all similar questions. Before we transform into a democratic government, our objective was self-reliance. In order to get self-reliance, we decided at that time not to be aggressor, not to be adventurous, but to have a peaceful coexistence with all countries, with the five peaceful means of coexistence. We were following that rule. As mentioned in my earlier speech, we would have to develop an appropriate military strength for defensive measures. But in our military development, compared to major powers and large neighbors, in terms of modernization, we are still lagging behind. In the case of the nuclear issue, we have already said very clearly that it is not for defense, it's not for weapons, it's just research in the past. Regarding, we have not progressed much due to our constraints, and this is clearly been declared. We are pursuing that as a subject, academic subject. There were no practical ways of means to achieve. It was used as a case against us and we've been accused of having this by the media, which exaggerates the situation. In reality, we are just beginning and doing academic studies. But in this new government, we have already given up all activities on nuclear issues, and we have no further plans to extend on this. As for relation with North Korea, according to our foreign policy, we have friendly relation with all countries, so it is just a regular relationship. We have been under a lot of sanctions, and we have to find ways and means to further our economic interests and our national interests. So we were looking for assistance and friendship and economic relations with other countries. Therefore, we have relationships in political spheres and military spheres as well. Because of our opening and our new efforts, we have stopped such relationship with North Korea. As for IAEA, we have nothing to check and nothing to see, so it is irrelevant. As for Aung San Suu Kyi, when she said that she had understood the president's sincerity in our reforms, and she had also had taken the view that we cannot dispense with our Tamaraw, which was set up by her father, General Aung San, and she had this kind of relationship with the Tamaraw. In our history, our military, our Tamaraw has never been rebellious. We have always followed orders from the government, and we have 100% support. The Tamaraw is in 100% support of the president. As for the 25% participation in the parliament, to be frank, it is like, for example, if you have a fish in fresh water, you cannot put the fish into a salt water. So we need to take time for transformation and progress. So in our history, we have never been separated from the Tamaraw. So in this new government, this 25% participation, which is in the Constitution, does not mean that it is completely rigid. According to rules and regulations, there are ways and means to improve on and change the constitutional articles, not as a dogma. So when the time is appropriate, there would be changes, and this 25% participation could be reduced in the future if and when it is appropriate, and that is I want to impress upon you. As for our economy, we are happy that everybody are looking at us with positive results. As I'm not a minister of, I'm not economic minister, I cannot say much, but what I can say is that we are having a strategy of developing our economy based on agriculture. And we are going to exercise and are exercising an open economy, a market economy. But this cannot be done alone, by our country alone. So we need help and support from all our neighbors and friends. And if sanctions which were imposed on us are removed, our economic development and growth will be much enhanced. Rapidly, we can achieve our goals. So what would be the effect on China-Myanmar relations? I don't think there would be any change. The People's Republic of China also wishes our country to develop and also believe that we should be having good relation with everybody else. So our relationship with the rest of the world will have no negative effect on our relationship with China. In the case of North Korean relationship, I've already explained. No, we have not violated the UN resolutions at all. Our relationship is just a normal relationship between two countries. In the future, we will be more open and transparent on this relationship. We will endeavor to do that. I thank all the questions and those who asked questions. Thank you.
Would you like just to add a word on where you...
American နဲ့မြန်မာ relationship ကိုလုံခြုံရေးနဲ့ပတ်သက်တဲ့ပူးပေါင်းဆောင်ရွက်မှုနဲ့ပတ်သက်လို့များဘာပြောလို့ပါသေးလဲ The U.S. and Myanmar relationship, yes, has been developed and we're going to be enhanced, and the military-to-military relationship has been improved. But given the Constitution of the United States and we understand that sanctions cannot be lifted entirely, immediately. However, in terms of sanctions, it is not beneficial to anybody, and the people are suffering. As a developing country, we cannot stand on our own feet, but we are trying, and all our neighbors and the Western countries and the East as well should all, with a positive attitude, should cooperate with us so that we can achieve our democratic path in the right way. And with the United States, I would like to tell them that instead of suspending the sanctions, we would prefer the sanctions to be entirely lifted so that our investors to our country can have a better deal. Thank you.
Full reply to a number of questions. Could I turn now to Stephen Smith? You were asked about things related to the speech made last night by the President of Indonesia, and then a very forensic question about how defense spending requirements relate to the strategic plan that you laid out in 2009. Anything else you want to take as well, Steve?
Well, thanks very much, John. There were two questions expressly directed to me. One was about the arrangements we entered into with the United States following the United States Global Force Posture Review. These were announced in November of last year. Involve three things. Firstly, initially 250 6-month Marine rotation through Darwin and our Northern Territory training areas. That'll grow to a 2,500 Marine task force over a 5 or 6 year period. Secondly, greater access to our northern airfields over a period of time. And thirdly, in the long term, greater access to our Indian Ocean port in my own state of Western Australia, just south of Perth, HMAS Stirling. But that's a third priority and down the track. The question I was directly asked was, will this be a force for stability, or will this lead to an arms race and to, in our region, and to comment on the remarks of the President last night. We've had an alliance with the United States for over 60 years, arising out of World War II. In our view, that has served Australia very well. It's been an indispensable part of our strategic and security arrangements. The presence of the United States in the Asia-Pacific, in our part of the world, has also, in Australia's view, been an unambiguous force for peace and security and stability and prosperity over that same period of time. So Australia strongly supports not only the engagement of the United States in our part of the world, but its enhanced engagement. And these additional practical cooperation mechanisms in the north and in the west of Australia, in our view, will be an ongoing cause for peace and stability and security in our part of the world, because it will continue to ensure a United States presence. We don't in any way see this initiative causing either instability or in any way an arms race. If there is, in our part of the world, if there is an increase in arms and armament and capability in our part of the world, it is a direct result of our economies rising. Any country is entitled, in our view, to increase its military capability as its economy grows. And in the course of my remarks, I made the point that everyone sees the rise of China, not enough people see the rise of India, and continuing to be underappreciated is the rise of the ASEAN economies combined. So because we are now the centre of economic growth, as a natural consequence of that, people, nations improve their capability. President Yudhoyono, in the aftermath of the announcement by Prime Minister Gillard and President Obama in November of last year, said that he could envisage a time when the joint exercises between Australia and the United States could potentially see joint exercises between Australia and the United States and other countries in the region, including China, particularly on the humanitarian assistance and disaster relief front, and we certainly share that view. Indeed, we're already in discussions with Indonesia about a trilateral Australia-US Indonesia humanitarian assistance and disaster relief exercise next year. And my memory is that President Yudhoyono has said publicly that he would welcome very much China observing that, as would Australia. So we see this as an instrument and a force for good, for collaboration and cooperation, rather than the contrary. Secondly, I was asked about the 2009 White Paper and recent budget cuts in the May budget, where the defence budget saw over our 4-year forward estimates period a $5.4 billion saving contributed to government to return us to surplus. This is a difficult saving to effect, but it's manageable. And in the course of doing that, we have effectively ring-fenced a number of very important areas. There'll be no adverse impact upon our overseas operations, whether that's Afghanistan, whether it's East Timor, whether it's the Solomon Islands in terms of those stabilisation forces. There'll be no adverse impact on our military numbers, no adverse impact on the resources made available to our forces deployed or about to be deployed overseas. And in terms of capability, our Defence White Paper 2009 had about 180 projects within it. Of that 180 projects, about 170 continue. The 10 that don't continue have effectively been overtaken by events where the capability has been found in other areas. And we've structured our budget savings so that our core capability in the White Paper 2009 will continue. Our future submarine projects, 12 new submarines, our air warfare destroyers, our landing helicopter docks, our Joint Strike Fighter program, which just as the United States has seen that delayed, so have we. So we've sought to enable our core capability to continue, albeit some of it at a delayed rate. We are not alone in grappling with a fiscal difficult period. And I think Secretary Panetta this morning spoke in terms of the need for not just national security, but also for fiscal security. So just as the United States, just as the United Kingdom, just as Canada, just as other countries have in recent times had to balance financial necessities with capability, so are we. We have also brought forward our next White Paper to the first half of next year, to the first half of 2013. And we've done that not just because there are budget and fiscal pressures around, but because our part of the world continues to change. The economic, strategic, security, political, military influence continues to consolidate in our part of the world. Plus, Australia is going through a period of change. A drawdown from Afghanistan, our largest overseas operation as a result of transition there. A drawdown expected from the Solomon Islands as a result of improved law and order circumstances there. And a drawdown from East Timor as a result of, we hope, successfully conducted parliamentary elections in the very near future. So this will see, after essentially 10 years of a land warfare expeditionary force in Afghanistan, Iraq and Afghanistan, a change to our environment. So we need to analyse the strategic consequences of that. As well, we have conducted our own force posture review to look at our own arrangements. That has not been done since the mid to late 1980s
by Professor Dibb under one of my predecessors, Minister Beazley. And in that we see and will see a focus on our northern and western approaches and the logistical and resource support brought to our northern and western approaches. John, there was a question which was not directed at me, but one which I wouldn't mind making some brief remarks, and it might set the scene for the chair of ASEAN. And that was the first question, which was, doesn't the presence of significant powers in this part of the world, by that I assume one means India, China and the United States, dilute the role of ASEAN and reduce ASEAN's role so far as regional stability is concerned? From memory, ASEAN came into existence in the 1960s, 1967. Australia has the historical great honour of becoming ASEAN's first dialogue partner, which we did in the early 1970s. I don't think anyone would have envisaged in 1967, when ASEAN was created, the ASEAN-related forums and architecture that we find today. In particular, the East Asia Summit. And when we now speak of the engagement of the United States, China and India in this part of the world, in our region, we don't talk about the United States, China and India getting together for a trilateral meeting and the ASEAN countries and other countries knocking on the door seeking to have a dialogue. We talk about the 10+. Before the entry of the United States and Russia, which Australia strongly supported, into the East Asia Summit, we spoke about the 10+6. In other words, ASEAN itself was central to that piece of regional architecture. And so the unfolding of the ASEAN architecture, the admission into the East Asia Summit successively of China, United States and Russia has, in my view, put ASEAN right at the heart, right at the centre of the discussions which take place about regional security in our part of the world. That's been a masterstroke so far as ASEAN has been concerned. And so far as Australia has been concerned, being ASEAN's first dialogue partner since the 1970s, it's also seen Australia being able to now take part in those discussions, as I put it in my remarks, being in the same room at the same time as all the key players, able to have a conversation both about peace and security and investment and prosperity. And I think when the world looks back at this period, one of the very significant achievements, which will be a very important bulwark of peace and stability into the future, will be the creation of the East Asia Summit and the admission at the point in time when India, China were on the rise, the United States continued its seminal influence, and the ASEAN economies combined were on the rise. The fixing of the East Asia Summit in its current arrangement will prove to be a very significant factor in underlining peace and security in our part of the world for the future. Thanks, John.
Steve, well, thank you very much for that three-part statement, the last of which, as you rightly said, a perfect segue for the chairman of ASEAN to say a word about the one question asked of him, which was to define connectivity more precisely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions. So my friend to the right has already answered some of the questions which I've already prepared. The question is about the role of the US and China, whether that dilute the role of ASEAN and the ASEAN centrality. And I'm very happy with the answer. I think it's a very good answer. Yes, that's true that ASEAN has a very important role and a very important principle. So ASEAN centrality is very important. So if we can adhere to that principle, there is nothing to worry about. For another questions, I think it's very important because one thing we have to take into account is intention of those who have come into the region. What is the intention who has come into the region? And I think everyone here have already cleared up their intention. And one of the intention here, everyone has already cleared up here, is that the main reason for the engagement is for cooperation with other countries in the area. So if the intention is good like this, I think this is very good for the region. Especially, it can also strengthen the cooperation in the region as well. So for the roles of superpower, I would like to focus on intention, and as everyone have said very well, it is about strengthening cooperation, and I think that is a very good intention. And I think the engagement also have to respect the principle, which is very important, which is the ASEAN centrality principle. For the second question, which is the Cambodian initiative on the master plan on ASEAN security connectivity, I would like to emphasize that we already have the master plan on the people-to-people connectivity. We have the master plan on the physical and infrastructure connectivity. We have already a master plan on connectivity of institution. And now I think it should be time to increase cooperation further and have a master plan on security connectivity. That initiative will be based on the principle that your security is my security and my security is your security. It is because of that we will be able to reduce the security dilemma, and hence we will be able to strengthen security in the region as well as ensure stability and peace and prosperity also. So regional security and cooperation need sustained interaction and sustained people-to-people contact to complement the institution connectivity, infrastructure connectivity, and people-to-people connectivity. So this is to our initiative aims at increasing the effectiveness of our regional architecture. Thank you very much.
Concluding on that inspiring note, and thank you for all of you for really guiding a very interesting debate and an even more fascinating set of answers to some very challenging questions. We started on time, and we have a degree of military discipline at the ISS, and I think we're stopping almost exactly at time. I would invite all of you to lunch, and those of you who have signed up for the simultaneous special sessions to begin at 3 o'clock and the second round at 4:30. Please join me in thanking our three speakers for a wonderful presentation.